FPS dad, bro.
What's up, FPS family? Have you ever wanted your shots to look like the ones in the first clip, but they ended up looking like the ones playing in the background now? Well, fret not, cause that's me in both clips. Today I'll share with you a little secret that'll make your shots look like the first clip and not the second one. If you've been on my channel before, you'll know that my secret to good aim is to use an aim trainer. I did a challenge where I used an aim trainer for 2 weeks and I made a video about the results. If you haven't seen that yet, make sure you check out the link on the screen now. There I established my routine and describe every task and why I did it. In this video, I'm going to skip over all of that, give you a brief overview, and hop right into the results. In this experiment, we trained aim for 30 minutes every day for 30 days. And we did 5 tasks 5 times each. The tasks were grid shot, sphere track, circle track, 6 shot, and spider shot. So first we'll look at spider shot. Our initial score was 74,698. We hit a high score of 84,936 on day 26, and on our final day we hit a score of 83,931. With this graph we see a nice logarithmic improvement. We improved a lot in the first 2 weeks, and then we steadily continued to improve, and we hit our highest scores towards the end of this session. Our next task is sphere track. We had the lowest original score here with a score at 65,047. We hit a high score of 106,069 on day 26, and on our final day we hit a score of 99,455. We see that same logarithmic scale happening in this graph, with our biggest improvement happening in the first 2 weeks, then only slow improvement on the second 2 weeks. Our next graph is 6 shot. This was our best task starting out. We got an original score of 90,094 and hit a high score of 113,999 on day 14. On our final day we hit a score of 112,679. With this one we see that logarithmic scale also, but we see a lot less improvement in those first 2 weeks, although we see a nice linear improvement there. After that it flattens out and we only see slight slow improvement. Our next task is sphere track. Here we had a starting score of 79,118 and we hit a high score of 102,248 on day 17. Our final score was 98,111. We see that similar logarithmic scale here also, with the greatest improvement happening in the first 2 weeks, the greatest improvement happening in week 1, and then still some improvement going on to the second week, and then we actually saw a decrease in performance in this task, and we'll talk about why that is later. Our next task is grid shot. Our original score for grid shot was 80,900. We hit a score of 95,786 on day 10, and we had a final score of 94,678. Here we see the best example of a graph what you would expect it to look like. We see that same logarithmic scale with the greatest improvement happening in the first 2 weeks, and then we see steady improvement going onward. In strafe track, we saw a decrease in performance happening after the first 2 weeks, and that makes you question what happened. If we look, we see that the decrease of performance really happens after day 19, and it was at that point, if you look at all the graphs, we evened out quite a bit and we were having very marginal improvement. So I started messing around with a few things, changing mouse grip, changing sensitivity, and I increased my sensitivity to 0.5 from 0.35, and then I went down to 0.45, and I stayed with 0.45 for most of the remainder of this, about till day 27. With tracking in general, a higher sensitivity makes it harder to track. The lower the sensitivity, the smoother your tracking is going to be. So that's what caused that decrease. There at the end, we actually ended up changing my posture. If you would like to learn more about how the posture you sit at affects your gaming, make sure to check out the video I linked down in the description. This is from an FPS coach, and he gives you some great guidelines how to correctly sit at the table, how to have good posture, and prevent any injuries. So I applied that, and I was able to go back down to a sensitivity of 0.37, which is 0.02 higher than my original sensitivity. And if you look at all the graphs, you could see the improvement happening again after day 28, going back to those scores. We see a nice linear trend. So we're able to keep that performance and actually improve in some tasks and go back to the sensitivity we originally had. The reason for me switching to a higher sensitivity was due to grid shot, which requires a lot of target switching really fast, and my issue was I was not able to get from one target to the other quick enough. And my solution to this was to increase the sensitivity. That way I could aim more with my wrist and less with my arm, since my current position of sitting had my elbow elevated slightly, therefore my forearm would drag on the table and I would not be able to flick fast with my arm. So that worked pretty well, but as you saw in the tracking scenarios, it made things worse. So I elevated my chair and I'm able to have that neutral sitting position, and I'm able to rely more on my arm aim now, and that has been going pretty well for me. So you might be looking at these graphs now and you see that my progress has leveled out in the month. In these last 2 weeks it's been pretty level, very little improvement, and you might be asking, is it worth continuing to aim train? And in the words of the famous Brazilian philosopher noted,
you gotta pay attention to yourself, right? So your mistakes. So if I'm doing an exercise and I'm not evolving after a month of doing, and if there's something wrong, like you either not doing something correct, okay, you gotta evolve.
If you're not improving, you're doing something wrong. So I already know what I'm doing wrong. The issue with tracking your progress in the way I did is you're always chasing high scores, and high scores are not the only way to show improvement. If you just try to hit high scores all the time, you're actually hindering yourself a bit. So I started towards the end doing my runs a little differently. I would do 3 runs of precision and then 2 runs of attempting high scores. So for instance, in 6-shot, instead of trying to switch targets as fast as possible, I'd try to have a high accuracy rate of at least 95, aiming for 98 to 100. And then on the final 2, I would try to have an accuracy of over 90%. That way I'm able to train the movement more and focus less on the speed. This showed improvement, and if you watch Noted's aim video, he talks about the same thing. And since we could see the success he has with aiming and using his aim routine, I've decided that my next challenge will be using his routine. If you haven't seen his video or don't know what routine I'm talking about, I'll link it down below in the description so you can go check it out. You can go watch it. This routine is a lot longer than the one I'm doing now. The one I'm doing now only took about 30 minutes. This one should take about 50 minutes, and I'll be trying to do it at the start of every day. In order to track progress, I was thinking of using aim labs as a benchmark tools. I will use these same tasks that I've been doing before, but I will perform them once a week. So in Noted's routine, he has 5 days of training, so I'll use those 5 days to train using his guidelines. And then on day 6, on Saturday, most likely, I will hop into aim labs and go through these same routines that I've been doing before and try to hit high scores. That way we're able to track the progress and see what kind of improvement we can make using his routine. Thanks for sticking around for the whole video. If you liked it, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and comment down below if you want to see more content like this. Peace out.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.